Welcome to Chapter 3. Please, please subscribe to help us grow in order to produce more for you to enjoy. Chapter 3. The forest floor was still. At Leo's feet, the goblin lay motionless, the victory finalized by a single, desperate strike. Leo stood over the fallen creature, his chest heaving, adrenaline still coursing through his veins. Suddenly, a soft, golden light erupted from within him. It swirled around his limbs like motes of sundust dancing in the wind. The light pulsed, growing brighter, enveloping him in a warm, invigorating glow. In awe, Leo whispered, What is this? Am I leveling up? Like in the stories? I can feel it, the strength returning to my arms. The light reached a crescendo and then vanished, leaving Leo feeling sharper and stronger. A wide, disbelieving smile spread across his face as he looked at his hands. I did it. I actually did it. My first victory. His gaze fell upon the goblin's gear. The crude leather armor was stained, but sturdy. But then he saw it. A thick leather belt with a worn scabbard attached. Beside the corpse lay the sword that belonged in it. Leo looked at the equipment thoughtfully. That armor looks like it might actually fit me. And a belt and scabbard? Perfect. That sword is a massive upgrade from this wooden spear. Leo set to work. He unbuckled the belt from the goblin and stripped the leather chest pieces. Gathering the gear, he made his way toward the sound of rushing water nearby. At the river's edge, Leo knelt in the shallows and began to scrub vigorously. He grunted with the effort. Gotta get this? Blood off? There. Almost clean. He dunked the leather chest piece and the belt repeatedly, watching the dark stains swirl away into the current. Next, he took the sword. He ran a handful of wet sand along the blade, scrubbing away the filth until the steel shone like a mirror. There, much better. It's not just a trophy anymore, it's mine, all done. With the gear scrubbed clean of the goblin's filth, Leo made his way back to his campsite. The golden sun was beginning to dip toward the horizon, casting long, amber shadows across the clearing. He laid out the wet leather pieces and the steel blade near the warmth of the fire to dry. Leo stood back, his hands on his hips, eyeing the small, leafy lean-to he had called home for the past few nights. In the fading light, the structure looked fragile, hardly enough to protect him from the elements or the dangers lurking in the dark. The more I look at this shelter, Leo thought to himself, the more I think about making it an actual permanent structure and a home base. It needs a huge improvement once I have the tools. Something I can rely on to keep me feel like a home. Once the gear was dry, Leo began the transformation. He pulled the leather chest piece over his shirt, tightening the straps until it hugged his frame. He buckled the greaves and gauntlets, feeling the newfound weight protecting his limbs. Finally, he fastened the heavy leather belt around his waist and slid the sword into its scabbard. It sat perfectly aligned against his hip, a reassuring anchor in an uncertain world. All right, with this new armor and weapon, it can definitely help me survive better in this world. Looks like it's time to go hunting for food before the sun sets. With one last look at his camp, Leo turned toward the deep woods. He wasn't just a lost boy anymore. He was a survivor, heading out to provide for himself and claim his place in this new land. He pushed deeper into the woods, his eyes darting between the thick trunks and tangled roots. For a long while, the forest remained stubbornly empty. No birds sang, and no game crossed his path. Just as the shadows began to stretch, Leo reached out to part a cluster of tall, thick bushes. He froze. Hidden in the undergrowth lay the bleached remains of a skeleton, its bony fingers still resting near a rusted but sturdy iron axe. Softly, and with a hint of worry, Leo said, "A skeleton. Who could this have been? An adventurer? Did they die in a fight against something dangerous, or was it?" Leo's voice trailed off as he looked around the dark, oppressive trees. He stopped his dark pondering, deciding instead to honor the fallen stranger. "Whatever happened, you shouldn't be left out here like this. It's best to give you a proper burial." Using what tools he had, Leo dug a deep hole in the earth beside the remains. He carefully placed the bones into the ground and covered them with the damp forest soil. Standing over the fresh mound, he bowed his head in a silent prayer for the dead. As Leo's fingers closed around the handle of the newfound axe, a sudden flash of movement caught his eye. A quick, frantic rustle signaled a rabbit sprinting through the grass. A rabbit! Finally! He took off in a blur of motion, chasing the creature through the thicket. He didn't reach for his sword. Instead, he began to chant, his voice low and focused as magic began to swirl around his hand. Wind, guide the earth, stone bullet. A stone bullet, propelled by a burst of wind magic, tore through the air at light speed. It struck true, ending the hunt in an instant. Leo slowed to a stop, his chest heaving, looking down at his first successful catch. With the rabbit's carcass in hand, Leo made his way back through the darkening woods. By the time he reached the clearing of his campsite, the sun had dipped below the horizon, leaving only a faint orange glow against the cooling sky. Leo sat by the open flame, the scent of roasting meat filling the air. As he turned the makeshift spit, his gaze drifted into the dancing embers. For the first time since his arrival, his mind wandered back to the life he had left behind. Mom, Dad, I wonder if you can see me now. Those days back home, we were so happy. Everything was so simple. A gentle smile touched his lips. In this strange, dangerous land, he realized he wasn't afraid. He felt a strange sense of peace, as if a weight was being lifted by an invisible hand. Thank you for watching over me. I know you're still there somewhere. I don't feel scared at all. I feel like I was meant to be here. Leo finished his meal, the warmth of the food and the fire spreading through him. He went into his tree branch house and lay on the dry hay. Before resting his eyes, he was excited for what's to come. He whispered to himself in the quiet of the shelter. I'll need a lot of wood planks now that I have an axe to chop the bigger trees. I will build a stronger house and make this my permanent home base for a while. The fire crackled low and eventually faded into the sound of crickets and the deep silence of the night. With a heart full of purpose and a spirit renewed, Leo Carden fell into a deep, dreamless sleep, ready for the dawn. The sun had barely begun to crest over the horizon when the rhythmic echo of an axe meeting timber began to ring through the forest. Leo was already at work, his muscles tensed with every swing as he targeted the larger trees he had noted the night before. After a long while, the clearing was filled with the scent of fresh-cut trees. He managed to down many trees, leaning against a stump to catch his breath as he huffed and puffed, wiping the sweat from his brow. The real work, however, was just beginning. Leo took the heavy logs and, with careful precision, began to split them into planks. He worked with an accurate eye, ensuring each piece was uniform. From those raw cuts, he painstakingly carved them into smoother, finer planks, stripping away the rough bark and uneven edges. The process was grueling and went on for many hours, but Leo refused to rush. After turning them all into a massive pile of fine planks, Leo looked toward the new site he had picked out for his construction. It was a beautiful, large, open, flat area, perfectly situated and ideal for a small settlement. But as he looked at the distance between his old camp and the new foundation, the sheer weight of the materials settled in. Leo was exhausted, his limbs feeling like lead. Realizing his physical strength alone wouldn't be enough to finish the task before dark, he closed his eyes and focused his mana. He cast body enhancement magic on himself, feeling a surge of magical warmth reinforce his muscles and bones. The spell provided the necessary boost to help him with all the heavy loads he had to carry back. It was a long and punishing journey, back and forth across the uneven terrain, but the magic held true. By late afternoon, he had ultimately got all the planks to the new site. He stood in the center of the flat clearing, surrounded by the materials for his future home, tired but deeply satisfied. The sun was beginning to hang low in the sky as Leo surveyed his pile of materials. He realized quickly that he didn't have the right tools and equipment to make complex woodwork, such as fine cabinetry or ornate joints. Without saws, drills, or specialized chisels, He had to rely on simple interlocking grooves to connect his timber. It was a good thing Leo had the handy crafting skill. It allowed him to see the potential in the raw wood even with limited gear. He knelt in the dirt of the new site, using his newfound axe and the edge of his blade to carefully notch the ends of the heavy planks. By carving deep, square recesses into the wood, he could slot the pieces together, letting gravity and the weight of the timber do the work of holding the structure in place. Slowly but surely, he started forming the house foundation. He laid out the perimeter first, fitting the notched corners together like a giant puzzle. Every time a groove clicked into place, he felt a surge of pride. It was basic, and the work was slow, but thanks to his crafting intuition, the structure was sturdy. By the time the first stars began to peek through the canopy, the skeleton of a floor was taking shape on the flat ground. Leo stood up, his back popping after hours of hunching over the wood. The site no longer looked like an empty clearing. It looked like the beginning of a home. Days turned into weeks as Leo dedicated himself to the house project. Without modern fasteners, every joint required patience, but his handy crafting skill proved invaluable as he moved from the flat foundation to the vertical framing of the house. He raised the corner posts and main support beams, locking them into the foundation using the same deep, interlocking grooves he had perfected. The skeleton of the home began to tower over the clearing, a testament to his persistence. Once the framing was solid, Leo shifted his focus upward to an actual roof. He crafted a series of sturdy rafters, angling them carefully to ensure rain would shed away from his living space. Using the last of his harvested timber, he began to lay the roof planks, slotting them tightly together to create a solid shield against the elements. The site was no longer a collection of wood and dirt. It was a looming silhouette of a real home. Leo stood back each evening, exhausted but filled with a growing sense of security as his permanent home base finally took its true shape. The heavy silence of the room was filled only by the sound of Leo's steady, tired breathing. He sat on the new chair and rested his head on the table, drained and sore all over his body. Every muscle ached from the weeks of felling trees and carving joints, but as he felt the solid wood beneath him, a sense of deep satisfaction washed away the pain. He was exhausted, but feeling happy. It was the incomparable joy of having a place to call home away from home, a sanctuary built by his own hands. As Leo was resting just for a moment, letting the peace of his new house settle into his bones, a sharp, screaming cry from far away echoed onto his ears. His eyes snapped open, his exhaustion instantly replaced by a jolt of adrenaline. Another human's voice? In this wild, desolate place, the sound was as shocking as a thunderclap. Leo jumped out of the chair, his fatigue forgotten. He moved with practiced speed, quickly putting on his armor and fastening the straps tight. He equipped his sword, feeling the familiar weight settle perfectly aligned against his hip, and took off running toward the sounding voice. He burst through his new door and into the woods, his heart hammering against his ribs as he raced to find the source of the plea. The forest air, once peaceful, was now thick with tension and the crude sneers of the two bandits. Leo watched from the shadows, his heart racing. "Please, just let me go," the girl cried out, her voice trembling as she struggled against their grip. The larger bandit let out a low, guttural laugh, tightening his hold on her arm. "Let you go, and miss out on all this? You've got a lot of spirit, little bird." The second man leaned in close, a predatory grin on his face. "Tell you what, give us everything you've got, and I mean everything. If you're lucky, and if you're real nice to us, we might just let you go after we've had our fun." "No! Stay away from me!" she screamed, her voice echoing through the trees. "Shut up!" the first bandit barked. "You should be honored. We don't find beauties like you out in the brush every day. You're going to make for a very good time." Leo couldn't listen to another word. The disrespect and the clear intent to harm her snapped something inside him. Without a word, he focused every ounce of his mana. Body enhancement. Wind magic. "Go," Leo whispered. In a literal blur, Leo vanished from his spot. To the bandits, it felt as though the wind itself had turned into a blade. Before they could even gasp, Leo's sword flashed through the air with a speed that defied the senses. The laughter stopped instantly. The two men collapsed to the dirt, life gushing from the fatal slashes. Leo slowed his momentum, sliding into a graceful, cinematic landing. He didn't look back at the fallen men. His eyes were only for the girl. He stepped toward her, his expression softening as he tried to calm his own breathing. "Are you okay?" Leo asked gently. The girl stared at him, frozen in an awestruck state. She looked at the fallen bandits, then back at the young man who seemed to have appeared out of thin air. She took a shaky breath and whispered, "Yes, I'm okay thanks to you. Thank you so much for saving me. My name is Luna Valentine." Leo felt his face heat up. Up close, she was more beautiful than any person he had ever seen back home or in this new world. It's so nice to know you're okay," Leo replied, his voice slightly awkward as he blushed. "I'm Leo Carden." He hesitated, his eyes lingering on her for a second too long. "Your name? Luna. It's so nice, it's a very beautiful name." Thank you for watching. Please subscribe as it is free to you so that we can make more enjoyable videos for you. Subscribe for Chapter 4, coming soon.